Last week, we reported on the work being done by Dr. Kathy Smith and other members of the Association for the Preservation of Virgin Islands Heritage as they dig into the past to find historical evidence in this territory. We reported on the work being done to restore the African burial ground next to the St. Philip's Church in Kingston, using ground-penetrating radar to conduct geophysical investigations, as well as the Quaker burial ground in Fat Hawks Bay. And this week we show you what the researchers uncovered when we followed their trail to Great Thatch Island. Sean Rose has more.
Great Thatch Island is the repository of invaluable heritage wealth that may soon be added to the list of things to see and places to go in the Virgin Islands, whether you are a resident or visitor. In this report, you will hear some historical facts about the Virgin Islands that you probably never knew before. Dr. Angel Smith is head of the Virgin Islands Studies Institute at HLSCC.
This island was purchased by government several years ago, so it's now Crown, belongs to the Crown. And what we've been doing is searching the island for the historic sites. In fact, on Great Thatch Island, we've located the ruins of the old Customs House. Many people in BVI would not know that Customs was located here on Great Thatch Island and not at West End. It was moved from Great Thatch Island to West End sometimes in the late 1800s. This is where Customs was located. Bit of a ruin. We haven't really worked on this as yet, because again we want to do some archaeological work before we do anything else. We have been able to locate the historic village that goes back to the 1800s. The slaves on this island would have been involved more in terms of agriculture, in terms of looking and planting ground provisions and cotton. This was the main kitchen to the great house. And note the countertop with the marble stones. You see, we think we antique now with our terrazzo and marble styles. Look at that. That's what they had. This is the main house, the great house. This is the foundations. As you can see, interestingly, there's a porch on that end that looks out to Tortola. So this is like the first building that you meet, the main entrance to the village. So you have to pass the owner, the master of the village first. You have to pass him, and then when we go down that way, we find foundations of other buildings like this one. There's this huge Dutch oven by the great house. So we know that was the master's oven. But inside here, there's a smaller one, which would have probably been the village baker. Because she producing bread for everybody now. So there's a smaller oven down inside here. The BVI had the best horses in the Caribbean, and everybody wanted horses from the Virgin Islands. So they used to ship horses out a lot. So the guy here was going to set up a horse breeding station so he could export horses. Now what we're doing over the past few days, we've started some work with a company out of St. Croix to do ground penetration radar, and we're trying to find the old cemeteries. Some of the graves that they've mapped here are very large, huge pits as they would have referred to them as. And that is possibly because in 1853, 1854, there was an epidemic of cholera, and which also hit Great Thatch Island, and we had about 20 persons dying of cholera here on Great Thatch.
David Quickle heads the team of experts from Bateman Civil Survey out of St. Croix who are using ground-penetrating radar to conduct geophysical investigations on the island.
What we are finding is that we're in an area that was definitely a confined cemetery for burial sites, and the fact that the flags are where we are marking the grave sites, they appear to be lining up perfectly parallel to each other, just as you would have in a typical cemetery where you have graves next to each other in a consistent row.
The research being carried out on Great Thatch Island has been a success, as Dr. Smith points out.
This area was pointed out by some of the elders in the communities over on the north side. These are men who came to the island as young boys to work with their grandfather, and they remembered where they saw graves. So they pointed out to me that this is a general area where there were graves. So this is why I cleared this area and brought the team in. So it's confirming that the memory of these guys is very good.
Illegal sand mining, coupled with the removal of artifacts and human impact, are obvious threats to the heritage wealth on this island. So, what's next for the Great Thatch?
Work continues, and we're trying to locate these areas because part of our goal is to have government declare the island a national park and also to develop it as a heritage site, to rebuild the village up on the top of the hill, and also to mark the graves so that we know, we can look at a sacred site for our ancestors who lived in these areas. As a part of the project, we're going to have a team of archaeologists coming in 2 years' time. They're going to come and do some archaeological work. But this kind of work that we're doing gives us an opportunity to plan what we are going to do with the island, how we're going to develop the island as we seek to look at it as a historic site and also as a cultural and heritage site.
As you can imagine, a lot of information coming out from Great Thatch Island. But looking at the heritage sites from Kingstown to the Quakers Burial Ground and now Great Thatch Island, the future looks bright for heritage tourism in the Virgin Islands. Sean Rose, JTV News.